All right, so we already went over question 1, remembering you have to match these reference or these index fossils up with the ones on the bottom of your reference table. And we basically look to see which one came in between the dinosaur and whatever that thing is. And it was the fish-looking thing. So next, we're down to this one. During which geological time period was the rock layer C deposited? So before yesterday, you would have just told me it was the oldest. But now you can tell me the name of the period by matching that guy up with these ones down here. And which one did you say that one was in letter C? Well, what I was getting at is it was letter A, and yes, A is during the Cambrian. So all we did was say that guy was that guy. Notice you can see he's got these like head things, I don't know, that only come down about halfway through his body, not down past his body like B and C didn't have any. So this guy matched with A. A was around during the Cambrian. What 2 processes produced an unconformity? So you do have to remember that an unconformity is a buried erosional surface. You could have answered 3 different answers. They only wanted 2 though. So it's a buried erosional surface. So what's one thing that has to happen? Erosion. I think that's the easiest one. And before erosion, what had to have happened? Weathering. And you could have also included after erosion to make it buried, what had to happen? To make it a buried erosional surface, what would have happened? And that, what would have buried it? Sediments that got dropped off. Deposition. Oh, sure. Describe one characteristic that a fossil must have to be considered a good index fossil. You have 3 choices. What's one? Yep, so easy to, no, not easy to find. Easy to recognize. And that is something that is often confused. Easy to find and easy to recognize are not interchangeable. What's another one? Yep, widespread and short-lived. And I did discover you can't do question 45. You guys, I believe, told me that. That we're going to learn right at the beginning of, right after break. All right, based on the evidence, determine the geological period which the unconformity formed. So we want to know when this unconformity formed. To do that, and again, we want a period. We're going to look at those fossils. So fossil, this top fossil, this guy right here, that's letter R. This fossil, this thing right here, is letter I. So you will have to match those up with the letters. So if we know R happened, so R, where the heck is R? R, the period for, struggling, oh, weekend, come faster. Here's R, R was during the Devonian. I was also during the Devonian. So if this one was during the Devonian, and this one was during the Devonian, when did this happen? During the Devonian. Identify one coral index fossil that would have most likely been found in the same layer as this thing, which we already decided that that word was letter I. I. So we want something that happened during the same time frame. So we want a coral. Notice that this one, this line is labeled corals. So the same one that happened at the same time as I is letter V. Do not answer it V. You have to come down here and tell me V is this plural dictum, I think. I don't know exactly how you say it. Pleuro. So I've said this before, that spelling doesn't really count. Like that word is almost like impossible to spell. Even me just looking at it, I still struggle to spell it. Make sure I cannot get that word confused with any other word that's on the reference table. So make sure it really looks like that at least, and not some other word. All right, so here's another way they're going to word a very similar question as the one we just answered on the other side. So each index fossil existed for a short geological time interval. State one other characteristic that each fossil must have to be considered an index fossil. So see how they gave you one relatively short geological time? You can't reuse that one. So what are the other two characteristics that they must have? Yep, so you could have said easy to recognize or widespread. You only needed one of them. But again, you couldn't use the short-lived. That's how they messed with you. And describe the type of depositional environment in which these fossilized organisms lived. So by environment, they want to know like what kind of place did they live in? Yeah, so if you take a look at them, we've got this thing that looks like a crab, things that look like seashells, a thing that's a fish. Where do you find all these things?
Beach, ocean.
Water is really what you, they're going to use a fancy word. Do you guys know a fancy word for a water environment? And I say fancy, it's not that fancy.
Ocean.
No, they want something that's going to cover any water. It's going to be marine. So you're welcome to say water. So to answer this question, water would have been perfect. If it was multiple choice, I have a feeling they would have used the word marine. You guys all know what marine means?
Water.
Yeah, so like a marine biologist or the Marines, they have something to do with water. Sometimes. Yeah, not always. It's not, am I wrong when I say that? I honestly don't know. Am I wrong by saying that?
No, you're not.
Oh, okay, because I didn't know, this is not my area of expertise. I feel like the Marines must have something to do with water. And finally, name one piece of evidence shown in the cross section that indicates that the intrusion A is older than the sandstone. And they should have reworded this. Is this an intrusion or an extrusion? How do you know looks like an extrusion at least? It's an extrusion because there's no hairs. Okay? So how do there's two ways you could tell me that sandstone, sorry, that A is younger than the sandstone. There's two different answers. It says A is older than the sandstone. So how can you tell me that the sandstone's younger? Okay, I gotta tell you that would not get you the answer. Because by you saying it formed after, isn't that me? Oh, word, sorry. Can I say you're younger or you were born after me? Don't they mean the same thing?
Yeah.
So you saying it formed after is just a fancy way of saying it's younger. This is asking you to tell me how you know it formed after. Do you see the subtle difference there? So how do you know it formed after? So that's one way.
Yeah.
No contact.
I said it's contact, you don't know if it stops.
Okay, that works. One thing that you cannot say, so Wyatt's explanation was one thing you have to be careful of not saying. The other thing is don't just say contact metamorphism. You got to tell me what about it. And what's another reason that we know the sandstone is younger than this layer? On top. Be careful though, if there was contact metamorphism there, then you can't use the on top as an answer. Anybody got any questions on this?
No.
All right, we are going to do a little bit of a review assignment, but I'm telling you, you're going to enjoy it more than most things we do. So I gotta pass out. All right, so we've got some time to finish up today's activity. So at your desk, if you listen to directions, you should have 2 crackers.
Yep.
You should have 2 pepperonis and 1 slice of cheese in front of you with your paper off to the side. So, and you're gonna need this paper. So I'm gonna put this one up in front here. And I would like you guys to use your cheese, pepperoni, and crackers. Actually, you know what? I think I have a PowerPoint to go with this. Hang on one second. All right, you ready for this? We have 2 crackers, 1 slice of cheese, and 1 slice of pepperoni is all that's required. So if you still need 1.
I have one.
Okay. All right. Here's what we're gonna start. What I would like you to do is, we're going to build a snack, leaving 1 cracker aside, but don't eat it yet, okay? So what I'd like you to do for this activity, I don't care how you typically build a cracker snack for the Super Bowl or whatever, I want you to do it my way. So you're starting with the cracker, adding the cheese, and then the pepperoni.
I did it right.
Okay, good. And now I would like you to go ahead and look at the paperwork that came with it and explain to me how principle of original horizontality is demonstrated in your little cracker snack there.
The layers.
The layers, and how were the layers formed?
Put them there.
Horizontally. Did you build your snack vertically? You did not build it vertically this way. You built it horizontally this way. So that's principle of original horizontality. So how is it represented? Your snack is in beautiful horizontal layers. Well, tell me how it's represented by or horizontality. Principle of original horizontality, the layers you put down in horizontal layers. What? Everybody got that first part? All right, here's what I want to do next. Is I want to talk about how principle of superposition was represented in your little snack.
I don't know.
How is superposition represented in your building of your snack? What? You put down the cracker first, which makes it the oldest, followed by the cheese. And finally, you place the pepperoni on top. That is the youngest. So superposition, the oldest layer, the cracker is on the bottom. The youngest layer, the pepperoni is on top. Here's what we're gonna do next. Here's your challenge. Here's the challenge. Are you ready? Take off the pepperoni. Set it aside. What did you just pretend to be by removing that pepperoni? You were erosion. You were either a glacier or a river or waves or wind or gravity, and you removed that top layer. What do we have to do? Wait, is that the next part? What do we have to do? So that's the third box. Removing the pepperoni represents erosion because What did you do to represent erosion?
Moved
You
it.
moved it away. So how does removing the pepperoni act like erosion? Because you're removing it or moving it somewhere else, something along those lines. But this is not yet an unconformity. What do we have to do to this cheese, cracker and cheese to make it an unconformity?
Take cheese off, put pepperoni on.
Put another layer on top, because what is unconformity? A buried erosional surface. So you gotta take your other piece and put it back on top, your other piece of cracker. Now I have another question. If Mr. Jamsmo walked in right now and saw our little snack, would he ever know there was pepperoni on them?
No.
Oh.
Not even if he looked real closely?
Oh, because you will.
There is some of the pepperoni grease, if you really notice, left on your cracker. So there is evidence that something was there, but he doesn't know exactly what. It could have been one stack of pepperoni, it could be 20 pieces of pepperoni. He doesn't know if there was pepperoni and then cheese and then pepperoni back again. All he knows is there was something there because there's a little bit of pepperoni grease. So whatever was there, we don't know exactly what it was, but we know something was there. Just like in real life, if a glacier removed a layer, we'd have evidence that there was a glacier there, but we wouldn't know what was in the layer that got removed. So, all right. So the cheese is an erosional surface because the pepperoni was eroded off of it. So now that we added the cracker back on top, we made it an unconformity. And you need to define unconformity there on your paper. So on your paper, what is an unconformity?
When you can't cover it.
No, guys, what is an unconformity?
Buried erosional surface.
Buried erosional surface. Gap in the geological record, you should probably add that part.
Yeah.
All right, now what we're gonna do is I asked you to take out the cheese and we're going to fold it. Just, the pepperoni's already off, remember?
I ate my cheese.
What do you do to fold your pepperoni?
Kind of.
You bend it. Start to bend the pepperoni. Some of you will break it, but if you are gentle enough and you're bending it,
Oh.
I'm sorry, yes, the cheese, not the pepperoni. When you bend this cheese, what principle are you violating?
Folding.
No, what, maybe you should answer. We are violating the principle of original horizontality because now that cheese is no longer horizontal. It is now folded. Yes, mine just broke too.
Oh.
So the second set of bubbles there, principle that is violated by folding the cheese, that's the principle of original horizontality because the layers are no longer horizontal. Now, if you put your snack back together as best you can, I'm actually stacking it all up here. What else can I do to violate the principle of original horizontality?
The vertical.
Tilt it. Two plates would have come together and we could have tilted it. So the second bubble there, how else can you violate principle of original horizontality? You can tilt it.
I've waited long enough.
You have not waited long enough, Logan.
I'm like, yeah, my breaking point.
Well, speaking of breaking,
No,
you gotta put everything back together and you're going to break this whole snack into two pieces. Now, you're trying to represent a fault. I'm gonna break each layer individually first. In theory, you were supposed, no, the second piece of pepperoni was just an added snack. So I did break them individually. Keep in mind, in real life, that's not how it would have worked.
Oh, it broke into more than just.
Yeah, I did have troubles with one slice of
Wait,
cheese.
what are we doing?
You
No, more
broke
like one
your
scratch.
snack.
It broke into like about 50 pieces. Oh, I'm gonna just-
Keep it over your plate as best as possible. Again, your paper plate, your paper plate, get it?
I actually prefer-
Get it, Michaela? Your paper plate.
Because there's a blade on a piece of paper.
Thanks for explaining it. What did the break represent? What did a break a fault?
Thank you.
And finally, what can we do now with these broken pieces of,
Eat it.
no, to represent an exemption to the principle of superposition? If we put them back together, that's not
It
exempting.
would have raised it up.
We could raise one side up, or we could stack
A mountain.
them on top of each other as well.
And then you-
Now you can eat it. Now that you probably don't want to eat it because you've been disgusted by it.
Can I just throw it away?
Hmm? You might want to ask if anybody else wants it.
I know my house.
Want my practice when I-
Okay, then you can just throw it away. Hmm?
No, I'm gonna eat it.
That's all we're doing today. Enjoy your break. No, put that paper in your nose.
Busted all of